Hello and welcome back to the Left Wing podcast. We had a little bit of a break. We are rested, we are recuperated, and we are raring to go for the new season. Welcome into our new studio. I'm Will Slattery. I'm delighted to be joined by Luke Fitzgerald and by Cian Tracy. Lads, how are we?
A little bit unsettled in this new environment. We spent 8 years of the show's profits on this new studio, and just not settled in yet. So we'll see how we go. We're testing this.
I like it. I feel like it's like the Tommy Tiernan show and two guests have just walked out. I feel it's like nice and intimate, and like it's kind of like a chat show vibe.
You didn't go for the late show. You went for the more kind of relaxed, kind of
Parky over there. He's like Parky.
Yeah, exactly. Hello and welcome to the Left Wing. I'm Will Slattery. Glad to be joining the studio. Lads, obviously great to be back. If ever it felt, Cian, that like rugby didn't switch off, we had the Women's World Cup, Rugby Championship. I think there was one weekend, a terrible weekend that it was, post Lions third test before Australia played South Africa in Ellis Park. It hasn't let up, and now we're back into the provinces, starting with Leinster on Friday in South Africa. How excited are you? Anything catching your eye ahead of the new year?
I'm buzzing, yeah. The rugby season last year felt like, as it tends to do as the seasons go on, just never ending, especially with the Women's World Cup, like you mentioned, Will, rolling on from the Lions series. But I think we've had a bit of a break. I've seen a good bit of the Rugby Championship, but I suppose when you're not covering that per se, it still feels like a bit of a break and you actually get to watch rugby for leisurely purpose as opposed to work purposes. So that's been brilliant. I know we're going to get in and talk about each of the provinces, but I think there's genuine excitement in all four, actually, really, heading into the new season. So I'm buzzing. I'm refreshed after a nice break over the summer and raring to go.
Yeah, I when I was leaving for the summer, we were all leaving. I mentioned that I was, expecting a baby while we were gone. And one good thing about having a newborn is like it fits perfectly into watching like lots and lots of sport. Like that's the one thing I was like, I don't mind minding turn on the TV.
How old last, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. Does your wife listen to this podcast by any chance?
No, only the first 30 seconds. So she's probably switched off already.
Yeah, I'd say you want to just be careful.
It's probably like you put your hand up for the child minding that coincides with like every match.
Like this brave new beginnings or / naive.
I don't know.
To be fair, I do know what you mean. Our little one has just turned 1, and I reckon she's already seen more matches than most 1-year-olds because there's constantly something on at home. So I do know what you mean.
Oh yeah, it was like there was 2 Saturday mornings in a row. I was like, don't worry, I'll take him into the sitting room. You have a bit of rest because Australia and Argentina was kicking off at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I wanted to watch it anyway. So I was perfect, and he fell asleep right away, and I just watched the game. So it worked out well. What's the most intriguing storyline, Luke, for you ahead of the new season? We have the 4 provinces back in action. What's like kind of top of your mind now as we're kind of setting off into the URC campaign?
Easiest one, actually, in my notes, it's Connacht. Connacht are the most interesting one to cover for me. So coming from 13th position last year in the league, obviously very disappointing finish for them. I think they've got some quality in the squad and kind of some key positions. That depth is the key thing, and then the big question is, what impact does a new stadium have? But also big questions, but also what impact can Stuart Lancaster have at the province? I think I was away with a few of the rugby lads a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys was saying he just thinks he's an absolute magic coach, and he thinks that they'll do something this year. I couldn't I won't betray any confidences, but
it's that golfing trip that was like
the golfing trip. Yes, the golfing trip, exactly.
Who was the best golfer of the bunch?
I'd say Johnny Sexton was, but Rob Kearney he was in a rich vein of form down there.
Are they single figure handicappers?
Johnny is. I'd say Rob could be.
Why does that not surprise me that Johnny?
Oh yeah, he's really good. Yeah, Drico's really good. Had a couple of rough days against myself. It was great to take the money off him.
I would have assumed O'Driscoll was good. He's really good.
No, he's really good.
Videos of golfing.
You've obviously recovered from your most famous golfing.
There was the only way was up, Cian, as I say. Hopefully Rory McIlroy's club's in better nick now coming into this week, or he's found it at least in Celtic Manor. But yeah, it was that was an interesting conversation I had. Because I obviously think he's, you can see what he did at Leinster. But, did it kind of peter out a little bit maybe towards the end? He obviously couldn't get the job done with that squad really towards the end as well. A couple of those years were very, very disappointing. So, and obviously the stint at Racing was disappointing, although I do feel like that seems to be a tough place to go and make your mark. There's lots of politics behind French clubs and different things like that. And the French players themselves, I think if you're a non-native, they can be difficult to manage.
I saw him do a podcast interview where he was kind of talking about now he obviously will be putting himself maybe in a positive light, but he was saying that like he found some of the kind of bigger names there weren't eager to learn new things or weren't eager to buy into his kind of coaching style, which we know from, as you said, talking to one of your former teammates and from the Leinster players who played under him, is an intense style, and it's very kind of like you have to be really drilled and clued in and stuff like that. And the Irish players who get that kind of good coaching from an early age are very used to being coached like that, whereas other nationalities it might not mesh quite as well.
Well, I'd also imagine there's a huge amount of excitement in Connacht, and they probably would be extremely open to learning from him. And I think it was a real coup for them to get him down there. And it seems to be, this could be, to my mind, kind of an inflection point now. Do they ever get the resources? We don't know. But if he gets a couple of years of results that attracts other players down, other young players will be keen to go down and get an opportunity and learn from a guy who has a vast amount of coaching experience, and he does play an exciting brand, which I think will suit them too. And the one thing about having a younger squad or less depth, well, perceived less depth, but a younger squad, is those players are far more likely to be open to be coached and to improve. So he could have a massive impact down there. So that's the one I'm most excited to see.
I actually agree with you 100%. I think he's going to have a huge impact there. Like, interestingly, like Sam Gilbert is coming from the Highlanders, but that's not until after the NPC season. So that's like the only outside player really coming in. So it's very much a Cian. He has to coach up the guys he has, and I think it's a great opportunity. Like, if you even look at the start, they have their first 5 matches: Benetton home, Scarlets home, Cardiff away, Bulls home, and then Munster away, which is a tricky one at the end, but 4 winnable games to start the season, and the Bulls minus the Springboks guys as well. That's a really enticing start if he can get some positivity going. I saw our colleague Rudd was up at the Connacht on Monday, and he just put up a photo of the new stand. It looks class. Like, yeah, getting that in will be great. Galway's a great sporting city. They get behind their rugby team, but they haven't had the capacity there to maybe build on it. I think it could be a perfect storm this season.
Yeah, like the excitement around it's not just a new stadium for anyone who doesn't know. I'm sure Connacht supporters are well aware, but they've built a new high performance centre as well, which, if you remember a few years ago, Bundy Aki was pretty critical when he came back after the World Cup, just of the standards of training and stuff is in the facilities not being up to scratch. And sometimes you need your big players, to speak up like that. And I know the powers that be at Connacht were fully aware, but it's great to see now that they're getting the sort of wider organisation in the shape that it should be in, really. But the stadium isn't opening fully for another while. So, and I just read a piece before we came on that it's going to be reduced capacity for the first few games. I think only
it's Leinster in January. I think is having a big opening.
But it's hugely exciting for Connacht supporters to have that to look forward to, as well as Stuart Lancaster obviously coming in. I don't know a huge amount about Sam Gilbert, but
good player.
But Connacht have been really good at unearthing like sort of hidden gems from the Southern Hemisphere. He played for the New Zealand under-20s, the All Blacks 15. Like, if he could have anything like the impact that Mac Hansen can have, and what I think Shane Bolton is going to have,
he's not season. Like a flashy Damien McKenzie style fullback. Just for people, he's more of a he's a good goal, kicks goals for the Highlanders.
He's all across the back line,
runner. Right? Yeah. He's not just a fullback, but that's probably his main position. But so he won't be like Mac Hansen's not X-Factor player.
But Mac Hansen wasn't flagged. To be fair, when he came, as in he would say himself, he couldn't get a gig with a Super Rugby team. So that's what I mean. That Connacht have been very good. I remember Andy Friend said a few years ago that they often have to shop in Aldi, I think was the way he was putting it, rather than your wherever that Leinster in particular and Munster.
Brown Thomas.
But they've been brilliant at unearthing those gems, so I think there should be genuine excitement around adding potentially another one into it.
And for me, it's even what he did with Leinster so well was coach up those young players, as Luke mentioned, like people like Finn Tracy, who finished the season really well, 5 tries and 7 starts. Hugh Gavin, who played for the under-20s and did really well with them. He had his first season last year. Like Matthew Devine, another young scrum half. I know Ben Murphy's there as well. Like there's lots of good young talent there, and I agree with you. They'll be sponges, I think, for Stuart Lancaster. Funnily enough, though, Luke, when he came into Leinster, he had a massive impact on the attack side. Connacht traditionally score a lot of points. Like, it's not as if the attack is
just about
it's their defence. It's their defence, which has been kind of extremely leaky. Yeah. And to be fair, I think he identified as well game management as well. Just how they manage through games. Like, I think we've often been like scratching our head, or not even scratching, a kind of head and hands, being like, what have Connacht done there? How have they managed to balls this up? So even though he's maybe comes with that reputation for the attack, he'll have to do a lot of work on the defensive side of the ball, I imagine, because Rod Sieb came in from the Brumbies as well. I assume he might have maybe an attacking say. I don't know exactly the division of labour, Cian, you might know more about that, but certainly the defence kind of tightening that up will go a long way towards pushing them up the table.
Yeah, and I think so. Like the other areas are going to be scrum and line out, And I think Scrum seem to be pretty good to my mind. I think
Ollie Tucker's done a great job.
Yeah, no, they are good, and they've been pretty consistently good. I think in that area of the game. Maybe against the bigger day, I think everyone's going to struggle against some of the South African teams there. But for the most part, strong there. Line out, I think that's something that they should be strong at too. And so they need to be tight in those areas. And it's important for a team that's looking to be a bit more consistent. That, those to me, they're the three kind of big pillars for you. Is going to be your line out scrum and your defence. If you're kind of good in all those areas, and you probably combine that with some astute enough kicking, and they've got some good players in 9 to 10. They've got good players in the back three. They should be able to do all those things pretty well. And it's just that bit around the defence. I think it's important that you do highlight that, because that has been the big Achilles heel for them the last couple of years that they haven't been able to get right. So hoping that they resolve some of the issues there, and like, to me, a new coach and kind of a guy who has a galvanising effect and a motivating effect could bring that group really, really close and really focus the minds, and that's the area I think where they have the biggest headroom, I think, to get better. So
he was also known for, I suppose, fostering leadership among players at Leinster and encouraging guys to have a voice. So that'll be interesting to see how some of the younger
good
players.
For other coaches as well. That was something I remember John Fogarty saying to me when he was in Leinster when he was that he'd come in and actually look at some of the video sessions that the other coaches were doing, so some of the younger, more up and coming coaches, and would kind of provide them feedback too. So I think throughout the whole organisation, he's got real potential to have a massive impact there, and I wonder long term then, with Andy Farrell, we don't know how long he's going to stay there. Obviously, he's done an unbelievable job, and he does seem to love it here. But I wonder long term, is this the platform?
He was asked about it. I saw he was.
Was he asked already about it?
Yeah.
That was my first thinking there.
I think he'll be brilliant. You're right at tapping into the wider province in Connacht, because that's so important. Is their kind of motto is grassroots to green shirts, and that's really important, that you kind of get into areas of the province that maybe haven't been tapped, because. He was brilliant, Stuart Lancaster, when he was at Leinster. You probably know that, Luke, of getting out and about into different schools, different clubs, and just lending his experience. And when Connacht went to the market for a head coach, when Pete Wilkins left last season, they were looking for a head coach who could coach attack and defence, but primarily defence, and they're very few and far between in the modern game at the moment. So definitely they had Rod Sieb, is my understanding, lined up to coach on the attacking side. So I would imagine that obviously Stuart Lancaster is going to have the overarching say, a bit like Andy Farrell has in Ireland in terms of the system, but I think his big focus from the off will be on defence. And to borrow your phrase from earlier, Luke, the only way is up, because it was really poor under Scott Fardy. That move just never worked out, unfortunately.
They conceded.
You wouldn't necessarily blame Scott Fardy for that. It's been a consistent issue for them for a while, guys.
62 tries they conceded in the league last year in 18 games, which
but they've been consistently poor in the area. He wasn't able to fix it. I think is rather than saying he wasn't able to deliver anything there. It's been a consistent issue for them. This is the year they need to get it sorted. And I think you're right on the Lancaster thing. To restrict him to one facet of the play would be wrong. I think he's got too much knowledge and too much to give everywhere. I would expect to have his footprints on, or his handprints on, the whole game plan.
Yeah, and they brought in Billy Millard as well, who was the Harlequins director of rugby, as kind of general manager performance. So perhaps that lets Stuart Lancaster kind of much more concentrate on the coaching.
Which is what he's stated.
What he's always said he likes to do.
Tracksuit coach.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly think he's the perfect appointment. I actually don't think if you could draw up a short list of a guy who's great working with young players, who has kind of a vision. He speaks very well. He can set the tone across the organisation.
He's a good guy. He's actually, I don't know, have you guys interviewed him one-on-one?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's
a really lovely guy.
And he's one of those coaches who, when you chat to him, you come away feeling like you've learned something, even from a media point of view, because lots of coaches don't give you much, but you come away, you're like, I never really thought about it like that. I completely agree with you, Will. I don't think they could have gotten a better coach. It's a dream appointment.
The point you make is a good one. Like, when he was very giving with his time, and he's a real passion for coaching coaches. Like, I know loads of schools coaches and club coaches got time with him, and he imparted some of what he knows. And like in Connacht, where they wouldn't have as many kind of, the school system of, say, Leinster, where there's lots of coaches there, that could only be a good thing as well, about bringing other coaches through and maybe knocking onto their players. So yeah, Connacht, as I said, Benetton home on Saturday night, then Scarlet's home and Cardiff away. Like, that's a good first three fixtures. So I could see them making a good start and building that positive momentum as we head.
Cardiff will be in a bit of flux as well. So
yeah, exactly. Cardiff's head coach leaving 5 days before the start of the season to go to be the assistant at Wales, which is
never a dull moment in Wales.
Never a dull moment. We don't even know how many Welsh teams there might be at the end of the season, so that'll be one to watch as we go through the season. Cian, where do you want to go next? Which of the three provinces?
Let's go to the next new era, I suppose. Munster. I think there's plenty of excitement down there. I was in Limerick the week before last, met Clayton Macmillan, the new head coach, for the first time. Did his first
What's he like,
press conference.
Dower, I heard. Is he a dour kind of Kiwi?
No, I didn't say dour. No, not at all. What he does is he has a serious presence and an aura the second he walks into the room. So he's a former police officer, for anyone who doesn't know.
So many of them were. I feel like.
But he's built
Steve
like
Hansen.
He's an absolute unit as well. He looks like he could still do a job for you in the back row. So he carries a certain presence when he enters the room. And the room that we were in down in Munster's HBC was quite small. And he came into the room, I think there was 9 or 10 of us there, journalists, and you could tell he was just sussing out the room. Even the first question I asked him, which was like, by the time I got to ask it, was like halfway into a half an hour chat, he threw it back on me, and I felt like was almost testing me. I thought it was a fair enough question. I asked him the style of play that Munster were playing in the second half of last season, essentially when Graham Rowntree left, the style of play they were playing under Leamy and Prendergast, how closely did that match up to how he sees the game and how he wants Munster to play? And he threw it back and he said, how did Munster play, would you say, in the second half of last season? And it was one of my first days back after the break. So I was like, just well, I had a slightly half-decent answer for him, because he kind of looked and went, okay, fair enough. So he was definitely trying to suss out people. And that's something that came out of the chat, that since he's arrived in Limerick, he not has taken a backseat. That would be totally wrong thing to say, but he's done a lot of observing. He's absolutely putting his ideas across, but he wants to get a sense, because don't forget that he hasn't brought any of his assistant coaches with him. He's brought an S&C coach, Brad Mayo.
Like, that's rare.
So, very rare, yeah. So he's trying to get a feel for how things are done. He absolutely respects the work that Mike Prendergast and Dennis Leamy and
Musty Lauder there, I think.
Absolutely. So he's observing what's going on. Pre-season has been back to kind of old school. They've been running up Cratloe Woods, for anyone Limerick listeners who know there. It's pretty steep hill up around there. They've been swimming in the 50-metre pool doing relays. Some lads apparently in Munster really struggled with the swimming. Jack O'Donoghue was saying, and Clayton Macmillan said it as well. And they went boxing in St. Francis, Limerick, in the Limerick Club as well, really renowned club in Limerick. So a lot of kind of old school things, but the S&C side of it, which I said Brad Mayo, a fellow Kiwi, has come in, was a huge area where Munster wanted to basically revamp. You look at the amount of injuries that they've had over the last couple of years. So they've come in, they've gone back to kind of basics, old school. It's an interesting approach. I think physicality, they want to become a more physical team. So I definitely wouldn't say he was dour, but carried a certain sort of aura and presence that I think the players will like. He's really big on culture.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the point about the injuries in the S&C is valid. Like, Jesus, like the Rowntree era, that was like the most kind of striking thing almost, that like the amount of injuries they would have throughout a season. They like very rarely had
training. Was like some of the sessions apparently that they would do were off the charts, and like lads were still recovering from the previous weekend. And look, maybe it wasn't a coincidence that they were picking up so many soft tissue injuries and things like that, so they wanted to revamp that. So they've got a guy, Brad Mayo, who comes in with a good reputation as well.
Yeah, so just to give some context to where Munster finished last season, they finished 6th in the URC. They only won 9 of their 18 games, so they only won 50% of their games in the league, which is really, really poor by their standards. They lost to the Sharks in the quarterfinals on penalties. Remember famously that wink from Jaden Hendricks in Durban. That was actually a very entertaining end to a season if you're going to go out. Champions Cup, remember they beat La Rochelle.
It's entertaining. I would have gone heartbreaking, but
well, sorry, they're neutral. I mean, obviously if you're a Munster fan you weren't jumping for joy, but it was it was funny. It was
we were furious about it.
We were, I suppose we were. It was a long time ago now.
Gamesmanship.
Anyway,
go on.
Entertaining may be the wrong word. Yeah, sorry. Beat La Rochelle in the Champions Cup last 16. That was a famous win. Then lost to Bordeaux. Conor Murray and Peter O'Mahony both retired. Cian mentioned Mike Prendergast and Dennis Leamy still in situ. Prendergast with the attack, Leamy with the defence. Alex Codling joins from the Ireland women's team as the forwards coach. He was kind of double jobbing for a bit last season. Infamously, he wasn't there for the quarter final against Bordeaux, and the line out Jesus, fell to pieces. Like, I don't think I've seen a line out go so badly wrong. In terms of new signings, Dan Kelly comes from Leicester. JJ Hanrahan back for a third time. The man just can't quit Munster. And the other signings are guys we actually all saw last year. Lee Barron and Michael Milne, who were playing towards the end from Leinster. They're permanently there now. Andrew Smith, likewise, who came from Connacht midway through last season. He's permanently there as well. So a couple of new signings, albeit some familiar faces there too.
Might not be finished either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. they're still hoping, I think, to try and sign a tight head. When I was saying there, Clayton Macmillan is doing a lot of observing. I asked him directly about it last week, the week before, were any new signings coming in, because like I said, I hear regularly that they're trying to sign a tight head now that the IRFU have relaxed the rules on signing overseas props. So what he said was he wants to give, which is absolutely fair, he wants to give the guys that are in the building a chance to prove themselves before he goes out to the market, because you still have Roman Salanoa on the injured list, and obviously Stephen Archer has retired and David Kilcoyne is gone as well, so it's a lot of experience has left the building. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a few weeks if Munster try and go, but obviously it's a difficult time to go into the market when the season has started. But like I said, with the IRFU relaxing the approach, there is potential there to maybe bring in an NIQ.
Yeah, but I suppose that's the thing. It's not a great time in season, but really, if you're trying to get a Southern Hemisphere guy in
coming off contract,
exactly, it's probably
you're looking at a New Zealander who's playing NPC, I assume.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd actually heard they were looking at South Africa.
His experience too.
Really looking at South Africa as well. Yeah, they'd
become more challenging because they've joined
because of the URC.
Really,
yeah. They had been strongly linked to no, because he played loose head. They're looking for a tight head, as far as I know, with the Chiefs tight head, whose name
George Dyer, is that him?
Yes, they had linked him. Obviously, Clayton Macmillan would have worked for him,
Chiefs,
but nothing has happened there in that front. But I think I think the best way of putting it in short is they're keeping their options open in terms of potentially adding another player.
I think they need to.
What's your view on Munster heading into the season?
Yeah, a little bit of uncertainty there, isn't there? So you got new coach. I kind of liked I kind of read the Leamy interview. Actually, I don't know if that was you or not. It was in our paper, but anyway. Yeah, interesting. He talked about the old school part of it, the focus on set piece. That's going to be very important. I think it's not surprising that he's going to give the guys an opportunity. That's the right thing to say. But I do wonder, if this team is going to the next level, they should be trying to sign someone on that spot. That's so important nowadays to have a tight head. And if you want to go beyond kind of the stage they're at the moment as a team, I think that's a key area that they need to strengthen. So, and I think they've done some good work with some of the young talent that's come in the building as well. And they've got some good players there, particularly in the two slots. I do wonder, how wise it was letting Murray go. Feels like there's a little bit of rugby left in him.
Especially that he didn't end up signing for another club.
That's what I mean. I do wonder about that, and that was a little bit. That feels a little strange to me. I don't think the book will have helped him now anyway, but
he won't be getting a call now, I don't think.
But anyway, just from the few, I haven't obviously read the thing, but just from the few soundings that have come out. So that was kind of an unusual one, but I suppose they want to give the guys an opportunity in there.
Milne and Barn, I think, are two really
good bits of business. That's kind of what I'm referring to.
Really good signing.
I think Casey probably has a big role to play as probably a leader in this team, because that is a bit of a vacuum. I think Byrne, is, he obviously player of the series down under, magical player, brilliant for Munster every week. But, he probably needs to add maybe a little bit on the captaincy side now that Peter's gone. I think I'd just like to see him, whether it's been a little bit more vocal or whatever it is, because I'd say he really focuses on his playing, and let's face it, he's an unbelievable leader in that capacity. But it feels to me like there's a little bit to add maybe for him. I think he has the capacity to do that. So watching him closely, he's got a big role to play.
It's on Tyke Byrne. I'm interested to see what kind of Tyke Byrne we get this year. Obviously in the early stages of the Leinster, he looked fairly knackered after a long season. I think he played more minutes than any Irish player up to that point. He had a great test series, was player of the series, and rightly so. Around
position wise though, Will, I think that was that to my mind had a little bit to do with that. I don't think he got off to a great start because of that reason.
But he ended up coming good, getting player of the season. But then how much has he managed this year? He's 33 now. He'll be 34
It just keeps going.
He'll be 34 in the new year. He probably will only play once for Munster before December.
Around 4 he's back, isn't he?
Yeah, against Leinster, probably in Croke Park. But it'd be interesting. He might not get to play a whole pile.
You would imagine he can't play as much as he did last season, and it's the volume of work that he gets through in every game. But the thing is, I think he's a young 33-year-old, if you know what I mean, because the start of his career he didn't play a whole pile of top level rugby, and I think that will stand him hopefully towards the end of the career and maybe get a little bit more out of him.
Second rows as well. There's a part of that where there's a grunt side to that job. You know, a lot of those guys can go on if they look after their bodies. It looks like a guy who looks after himself very well. He's in great shape all the time. Seems to be able to pitch up every week and put in big performances. That's a sign of a guy who looks after the body well, understands his body well as well. And I think that job, you can still add a lot of value by getting through just some serious work as well. So even if we don't get, say, the kind of big power moments that we get from where it's big, you know, he's getting into these positions where he's poaching, etc. You know, maybe other parts of his game kind of flourish as he gets a little bit older and more mature. So maybe the line-out calling gets very polished over time. Maybe that leadership capacity that he has. Maybe he builds in that kind of, you know, maybe it's more hitting rucks and maybe it's just more tackles and things like that he kind of can get through as he gets older. So maybe I think you're right. I think that might well play to his advantage. Now, he does play a lot of internationals too, which are very, very hard on the body. And because he's in those positions poaching all the time and it's such a strength of his game, that's punishing enough on the body, the hips, etc., taking hits and back and stuff. So we watch him closely. I think the other part is probably, you know, I think Leamy and Prendergast, I wonder will they take a bit of confidence from the summer tour. I know there was only a little bit of, you know, only a small exposure, but it's still an exposure to another level, new ideas, new players. I like those guys as a pairing. I think they're kind of humble guys. I think they're smart fellas. They're obviously were very good players themselves, so I think they understand the game, have a feel for the game, and you would like to think they do. So I'm glad to see them stay in situ, and I think that does give McMillan, while there's an unknown quantity with Munster and him coming in, there's a little bit of familiarity there, which I think is important, particularly with those guys, as we said, leaving in the player group. You know, Archer, O'Mahony, and Murray as well. So there's a lot to be positive about there. I think
the homegrown aspect, I think, is really important. I think that's something that Munster supporters do really appreciate, having some sort of homegrown voice. It doesn't have to be necessarily an entire homegrown ticket, but I think it's a real positive that you have two guys. Mossy Lawler is there as well. He knows the province obviously inside out. Alex Codlin, like you mentioned, Will, is the Munster lads really rate him, and so did the Ireland women, from what I understand. He did a brilliant job with the Ireland women in terms of the maul and the line-out work, and like you said, he was badly missed. I was over in Bordeaux that day when the line-out just completely went to pieces, so he's back in now. Obviously he would have missed a lot of pre-season, but now that the World Cup is over, he's back in. So there's plenty of causes for optimism, I think, but getting that tight head, if they can, I think would be a massive boost.
And they've added in the other areas, I think.
And a good start. Like, they've Scarlets away, Cardiff home, Edinburgh home, their first three before that game in Croke Park against Leinster. Like, so that's three very winnable games to get points on the board early. Because, you know, some of the starts in the Graham Roundtree were quite slow as well. Like, they were quite good at maybe coming back into a season, but they often put themselves in a hole early doors.
And then the injuries nearly compounded in the middle, and then they got them all back.
Like that should be 3 bonus point wins from 3.
It's such a good point you make. It's such a good point you make, Will, because when I was down chatting to Clayton McMillan, we were chatting to Jack O'Donoghue as well, and that was a point that he made, that one of the big focuses that Clayton McMillan has put on in pre-season is starting fast, because Munster tend to, you know, go on a run towards the end of the season, and I know they ended up winning the URC a couple of years ago thanks to a brilliant end of season run, but you'd like to have some bit of a buffer from the start as well and not leave yourself with too much work to do.
And lastly, what about Jack Crowley? Big season for him, obviously.
Brilliant player, yeah.
Like last season, lost his Ireland place. You know, it was a tough year for him. Like, you know, he was in the centre of this out half storm that we're always talking about. But feels like he needs a big season here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that way every year. It is, like, you know, that's the responsibility that comes with the job, and you know, he's going to there has to be a little bit of power sharing with himself and Casey, and they've got to try and bring this group and direct this group forward under new leadership on the coaching ticket, and it'll be key for McMillan to get those guys on side. But they're both great trainers. They both keep themselves in great condition. They're both very, very motivated guys. I think themselves and Byrne, like, there's a nice nucleus of really, really top quality guys here who are, again, have good habits. You can see it in their play. Key bit for him, I think, I'd like to see him be a bit more consistent off the deck. I think that's important for him. I love how, what I love about Crowley is that I think he's mentally durable. I think he can deal with disappointment, and he can come back from that. He showed that last season, even though that would have been a bit of real shock for him, having come off a very strong season with Ireland the year before to be dropped. And he's going to have some serious competition with Prendergast, because while I've been critical of some aspects of Prendergast's play, he's going to have an unbelievable platform every week where he's going to be dominating other teams, so he's got that advantage on him. Also, he's a bit younger, and I think he will get better. Prendergast will get better. He'll fill in those gaps in his game. I think he's a competitive guy, and I think that's going to put extra pressure on Crowley. So every year, he's got to be thinking of where his marginal gains are going to come from, and I think he's got them. To me, the kicking is the obvious one. I like how he runs the game. he's a fit guy, he's a smart guy. I think it's a potential for him to have a great season here and to lead this group and to be a real voice amongst the group as well. I think he's got to try and help Burnout and Casey out in that respect. So we'll all be watching him very closely. Yeah.
Are we going to see him from the start? Like, are we seeing him and Casey this Saturday? Would you reckon?
Yeah.
The soundings are the guys who were in Portugal and Georgia will be playing.
Because obviously we're going to get on and talk about Leinster. Pretty much all their guys were there. The Lions are the ones who were being held back. So
it's be rare for like Casey or Crowley maybe to get the start of season like this with some of these winning
and
games.
Casey, I'm going off memory now, even though I was there, I should remember, but started both games on the summer tour in Georgia and Portugal. Crowley obviously started the hammering of Portugal and played
that game was
played really well, but I mean the opposition was just so poor.
What was the final score in that game? It's like they put 100 points on them.
Yeah, it was a record winning margin. But so it's difficult for him or when Andy Farrell comes back in to take much from that. But my understanding is that the Ireland players will say who were on the summer tour are all available. It's just about how the provinces manage the minutes.
It's funny because I've been, when you go onto Sportsfot and you're trying to see who's there and who's not, like, because I don't think Ryan Baird's in South Africa from my detective. He is in South Africa.
So is Instagram. Yeah,
he is.
They're having a nice meal out.
I don't want to preempt the Leinster chat, but my understanding is pretty much all of the Leinster players except the Lions players, including Thomas Clarkson and James.
They should be though. They should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it was time to move on to Leinster then. Anyway,
good segue.
Yeah, perfect. We can empt the chat. We don't need to preempt it.
They've got Stormers, Bulls, and Sharks. Yeah.
So Stormers away, Bulls
Sharks
away.
at home.
Yeah, Sharks at home.
Right. Yeah.
So they start with Stormers away on Friday in Cape Town, Bulls away, and then the Sharks at home. And if you're going to play South African teams in South Africa, a time when actually South Africa are missing their Springboks and obviously Leinster are missing their Lions, but they wouldn't have gone to South Africa anyway, no matter what time of year it was. Like, the Leinster squad that's going down is actually pretty strong. If you look at it on paper, who's going to be there, like, you're going to have Jamie Osborne, Tommy O'Brien, Sam Prendergast, Ryan Baird, Clarkson, Jack Boyle. Yeah, like there's a lot of Robbie Henshaw is there as well. Like this is probably one of the stronger squads they've sent down there, so they have a chance to.
They wanted the South Africa trip earlier in the season, I think, to test more these guys, the Ireland players, because when it was later in the season, we saw over the last couple of years, it was a proper young squad. Now there's plenty of young guys there, but I think a lot of guys are going to benefit, like Tommy O'Brien going out to South Africa playing on a hard track, these kind of guys. So
and Ryan Baird, the last time we saw him play was against the Bulls in the final of the URC. Did he get man of the match? He was very good that day anyway. Like, he had a very kind of like,
he suited to these tracks,
no frills kind of performance. Like, it was kind of more like, the eye-catching moments weren't there, but it was in a good thing, because I think
the one thing I'd say, Will, is the South African team are in action, but at the same time you'll be amazed at how good some of the people you've never heard of down in South Africa are. Like, this is going to be a massive challenge.
And their teams, to be fair, there's not one team like Leinster with a lot of Springboks. The Springboks are very much sprinkled across Japanese teams, a couple here, a couple there. So, like, there's probably only
still a huge challenge.
two or three guys probably missing from each team. Maybe the Sharks probably a bit more impacted because they have a few more. But how are you feeling about Leinster generally? So, like, to recap, they won the URC last year, the first time they won since the South African teams came in, their first trophy since 2021. But the season will be remembered for that Champions Cup semi-final against Northampton, 37-34 defeat. Keeping Jordy Barrett on the bench, conceding 5 tries, the end of the game, turning into the kickable penalties. There was lots that went into that day, and it really is a cloud.
I kept it fairly simple, Will. So I have here, coaching staff is a plus, that they all re-signed. I think that's a good thing, depending on your view on the coaches.
Is it?
But I think
is that a good thing?
I think it's positive. Yeah, I like.
Has Jack Naber been a net positive? Has
they've got a trophy, so
has the shift?
I'm saying yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, well, they've won a trophy. They hadn't done that previous, so I'm going to say yeah.
And won a trophy that was harder to win than ever.
Agreed.
So you think one URC?
They blew up on the. This goes back to my criticism of the South African coaches around their selection policies and how they think about the bench. I like how they think about the bench in some degrees, but why you would ever have Andrew Porter sitting on a bench to start a big game? Wild, particularly for Leinster, like when he does 80 minutes for Ireland quite regularly. Bizarre. Jordy Barrett, one of the best players in the world. Why you'd ever have him on the bench? They need to relax on this impact off the bench. The start of the game is still absolutely key. So if they get that thinking right and clear their heads, like what I want from Leinster is in a big game, I don't want to be talking about their selections. I don't want to be doing that this year. I don't want to be going, what? Like, I don't want to see the team and go, that's unusual. And I've done that far too many times watching Leinster in big games over the last couple of years. So I'm not going to rehash all ground there, but that's what I want to see out of them this year. I think they're really good coaches technically. I think they're gifted. They're great thinkers in the game, and I kind of like lots of the shift that they've made. And I think the key guy for me is probably at 10. I think he gets better this year. I think he gets the tackling sorted out. Maybe not fully, but I think partially he'll get better in that area. I think there'll be a big focus on him, and I really like him as a player. I think he's going to be great, but that's a big hole in his game. I think he gets that sorted. He'll get a little bit stronger and fill out as well. So there are two areas. I have another plus. Still the strength of the squad. Still, like Ioane to come in is probably the one thing where, yes, they lose Barrett, and that is a loss. It's a net loss, I think, when you compare Ioane, like he's back playing NPC this weekend. So after a tough weekend for New Zealand. So I still think he's a classy player, though. I think he'll add something. Where he fits in is probably conundrum and who misses out. Yeah, he's not Jordy Barrett, but he's still a quality player. I think he's got to go on the wing somewhere.
He's moved back to the wing now.
I think he's got to go on the wing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, he's got great top end pace. He's a big athlete. I really like him.
Wouldn't surprise me if he didn't start for them.
From
what I've seen of him, I don't think he'll start in the centre. I think James Lowe and Tommy O'Brien. If Tommy O'Brien has a really strong start, because Ioane's not going to be coming in.
I don't think so. This is
like Ioane at his best 100% would start.
So hold on. So is the one thing I'd say is, do you not see him at Lowe? Love Lowe, unbelievable player. But did he look unbelievable on the Lions tour?
No,
I wouldn't say he did. Yeah, I didn't think he had a great tour, and he's unbelievable. He's a magic player. But Ioane has magic moments too, but remember he's playing in a very different position in the centre. If he plays in the wing with Leinster, could he not have a kind of similar impact? Tommy O'Brien's a brilliant player. I would always pick Tommy O'Brien in my team. I just really love everything he stands for, and he looks like young, powerful, quick, great in defence. He's all action. There's stuff happening around Tommy O'Brien all the time. I love that about him. But remember, Keenan now has got injured. So, there's kind of slots here where you go, well, does one of them fill in there? That's a little bit less certain for me. I would have agreed with you to a point, but I think Ioane finds his way in if he stays fit somewhere.
It's not until after November, so it's
but that's a question that'll be interesting to answer.
He's under big pressure in New Zealand, reading New Zealand media, listening to different things, because his form just hasn't been great for the All Blacks. But I think your point is spot on, Will. Pound for pound, and on his day, he is a sensational player. Yeah. He is a sensational player. So, but he's not a Jordy Barrett. He's not a like-for-like replacement whatsoever. So,
and how will the Lions fit back in? So Leinster really impacted by that. And I remember, so my own season, and you can see it all the way through kind of the history of coming back from Lions tours. It's heavy on the body. Who comes back in good shape from that? There's already one body down.
Joe McCarthy.
Joe McCarthy as well. But I don't think his didn't seem as serious maybe as
at least November anyway. So I don't think he's going to feature.
But they're actually they're well. The only thing is, I'd say they're probably pretty well equipped in that second row slot. I think to deal with Joe McCarthy being out, even if he is a loss.
But Snyman isn't going to be available for until he probably won't play for Leinster until December. He's going to be tied up with the Springboks.
Yeah, but they still have Baird. They have Ryan.
I really like Diarmuid Mangan actually.
Yeah,
I was surprised that he didn't go on the summer tour, because he spent time in Ireland camp this summer. I'm looking forward to seeing if he gets a bit of time down in South Africa. I think he's a super talent.
Yeah, and I think Leinster have loads in the back row. So my point is that you might lose Baird, and I think Baird's best position is definitely 6. Yeah. But you might lose him there for a bit, but you can certainly do a job for you up until that point. And there's still plenty. Leinster still have plenty in the tank to deal what they're going to have to deal with say a makeshift a second row for up until say halfway through the season.
And the Lions' point is to go in January. Obviously, Keenan is injured, is out until January. McCarthy injured, out TBC. We look back and say Jack McGrath injured his hip, was never quite the same, had to retire. Jared Payne had to retire. But then there's also guys' forms, which isn't, you can't really look back. There's no list of people's forms from 2017 to know how they played necessarily, but 100% we've seen players struggle to get up to their previous pre-Lions form after the long season.
Injuries is kind of a big thing, Will. Yeah. Injuries always seems to be the thing with the Lions for me, less so the form part. If I'm being honest with you, that's my opinion on that. I think it's always the injury thing, and guys always seem to pick up something or soft. It's just hard to get back into the flow of things when it goes on so long. So we'll be watching that one closely as well. And I think that Porter, while I was saying mad not to start him, he does while making the same point, I have referred to the kind of how much time he's had to have on his feet, and how much how much of a burden he's had to carry. So that's that's one thing as well. Like at some point, the body, while he's an unbelievable athlete, does it give out under the strain? Cian, I think, will be great because he's almost like a new player because he came back so late in the season. I think he doesn't have that kind of burden of the heavier work. I think he was playing brilliant stuff on the Lions. He's become a real leader, I think, as well. And Furlong back could be like another player. So there's some while we're looking at that saying, there's potential downside, maybe injuries, etc. There's a few guys who came back and actually had great tours and were consistent on tours. So watching those guys as well and seeing how they bed back in. As I said, Furlong could be like a new player. And at the top of his game,
he was brilliant.
Is there anyone better?
He was brilliant for Lions.
Is there anyone better?
Didn't play much last season at all, so shouldn't have the miles in the clock. Caelan Doris obviously will be working his way back over the next
Doris
while.
as well.
Probably won't play. He might not play until Chicago.
I think that's what the hope is.
Yeah.
But like, God, it'll be some first game to throw him back. So I would imagine they'll probably err on the side of caution in terms of not rushing him back because it is a long season.
So where are you in the out half situation? Like, I'm fascinated. I know it's only week 1, but like Stormers away, Bulls away is a great test of Sam Prendergast, and like Harry Byrne is back from Bristol, played pretty well over there. Did decent, put in a good shift. He's back now. Ross has obviously gone to Gloucester. So you have Kieran Frawley, Harry Byrne, Sam Prendergast. Assuming Prendergast is going to start on Friday night, but it's an important 2 weeks for him. Like, if he doesn't have a good start to the season,
they'll be running at him. They don't care who they run at everyone.
Are we in a situation where Sam Prendergast is the unquestioned Leinster starter?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So if he has 2 poor games in South Africa, it's just like, we're picking him.
No, I don't think. Sorry,
I mean, he'll definitely start and deserves to be number 1 going into the season. But for me, like, those 2 guys still are like, I don't think Prendergast has proven enough as yet to be like nailed on.
Well, I think he's got a big hole in his game that if he doesn't fix, like, to me, like, you get to a point where you can't pick him. Like, you can't. If someone's not going to tackle, you might get away with it for Leinster, but you will not get away for it at Irish level. You won't at the international level. You won't. I like Harry Byrne. He's like great potential. Had a few kind of glimpses of that when he was in, but he never could stay injury free. If he stays injury free, he'll be a threat. I think the Frawley thing has come and gone. I think, unfortunately, I think he missed his opportunities and was written off by the international coach, and I think that's really impacted him. But like, he's a guy. He should not be completely out of the picture, in my opinion. But I think he probably at this juncture he looks like a bench player to me, and I think it'll take an injury for him to get back into that slot. A brilliant player, though. You can see he's a brilliant player.
I'll just be watching the first 2 weeks very closely at out half.
And Sam Prendergast's last 2 performances were quite good off the top of my head. He played really well in Georgia in horrible conditions against a team who did look to target him, and he was very good in the URC final against the Bulls, again with a team who looked to target him, and his defence was actually good. Look, he's well aware, he's spoken about it, that he knows it is, as you put it, Luke, a hole in his game. I would imagine he spent a lot of pre-season trying to put on a few extra kilos, working with the Sean O'Brien, who's the contact skills coach. I've made this point before, like, he's not a Sean O'Brien, he's never going to be, but what a guy to learn like tackle tech from. So I agree with you. I think he'll get it sorted as well. And to back to your original question, Will, I think he is unquestionably Leinster's first choice then, and it would have to take...
I think he gets... I made the point at the start of the show.
Obviously, I know he's like going to be starting week 1 and week 2 and probably week 3, maybe not week 3 actually, but like, so I know that obviously. I'm more saying that. But I still don't think will, like, is it Harry Byrne or Kieran Frawley, do you think is going to... I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying, I suppose. I just still don't think he's proven enough on the pitch in matches to justify like him being like nailed on to the degree of
he's shown like I made the point, but we were talking about Jack Crowley earlier on, like, and he's going to have to keep getting better. Like, I believe Prendergast is going to get better. I do. I don't think he's certainly not the finished article. I think he starts seeing the game a little bit more slowly as well as he's in kind of those pressurized environments more. So I think his decision making gets more consistent. I think he will be forced, because he's a competitive guy. I heard he's a great personality and a good kid. I think he'll be forced to confront this issue, and I think I'm hoping he nips it in the bud pretty early in the season.
That's why I think it's a great first 2 matches for Leinster. I'm so intrigued to see, say, like Tommy O'Brien, how he kicks on, after a good.
I think he's kind of done in my mind. He is what he is to me. Yeah,
but like, this is an opportunity for him with no lines there. If he has a really good performance as one of the key men, he's really established himself.
His biggest thing at Will is going to be his injuries. Yeah, because he's so combative, and he does throw his body around. Like, part of me wonders, like, it's like, can you pull a guy like that aside and go, listen, could you just come back 1% or 2.
A bit like Gary Ringrose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes
Do you focus on the technique?
Yeah.
So this is my point. I was going to finish. Was like, do you say to him, "Listen, just perfect technique gets you pretty close to what you're doing now, without completely kamikaze yourself," which it does look like sometimes. But then, if you put the seed of doubt in someone, does it change them? And I don't know about that.
Fine balance, actually.
It is. It's a tricky place to be, you know. So I don't know if you would. I don't know if I touch him because he's so good at what he is now. But that's the key challenge for him and the likes of Ringrose too. Is can they stay injury free? Because we know the quality there.
Are we expecting to see Jamie Osborne a full back on Friday and against the Bulls? Like Hugo Keenan's out until after Christmas, so like the number 15 jersey in Ireland is kind of a question mark for me. Jamie Osborne is the best candidate. Like he played in South Africa
and he was great
and was really, really good. Now I know that was the summer 24, so you're looking at almost 18 months ago almost, but I think it could be a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, Jamie Osborne is the one at the time of recording that I'm not 100% sure if he's under. I think he is because Thomas Clarkson is certainly down there, and I would imagine he adopted the same thing because Osborne obviously didn't play for the Lions either. But I would agree with you, and I think Andy Farrell will certainly view that coming into November. I think he will. But Jimmy O'Brien had a really good summer tour, which was great to see because he's had a tough time with injury, that neck injury that he had.
Larmer's back too.
Larmer's back. I don't think he's a full back though. I don't think he has the
He's
aerial
had some
game.
good days out, but maybe down there it'd be tricky.
And Jimmy O'Brien, look, he was a bit of the forgotten man, and I know there's only so much you can read into, very little into the Portugal game, but that Georgia game I think is going to be useful as well, and he had a very good game in difficult conditions there. He was also excellent in Leinster's running for the URC, but playing at fullback, so he is certainly a live option as well. But I think when it comes, if we're looking bigger picture Ireland, I think Andy Farrell will be looking at Jamie Osborne for that Chicago All Blacks game.
It's a big year for Osborne. Like I think it was towards the end of last season. It was actually after he came in on the Leinster and played the midweek game and looked good, and we were like, where does he kind of fit in next year? Like, obviously Jordy Barrett is gone. There's still Henshaw in the centre and Ringrose in the centre.
I don't think that. Sorry. So this is the issue they're going to face. To me, like long term for him, like Henshaw's the one I'd be
He's a 12.
I'd be eyeing up Henshaw. And I think Henshaw, like I have waxed lyrical about Henshaw for years. Love Henshaw, but he looks like he's got. We talk about, say, Tyke Byrne not having miles on the clock. Henshaw does have miles on the clock, and he's very, very physical player. Lots of injuries. You know, I just wonder. Like, I feel like he might be the one that's kind of used more tactically during as his career goes on from this point here. And I do wonder if I was Osborne, I'd be saying I think 12 might be my slot. You know.
And I wonder and I have no inside information, but I wonder does Stuart Lancaster be sort of monitoring Robbie Henshaw for potential to finish his career maybe in Connacht?
That's a great idea.
No inside information, but I wonder if that might happen, you know, at
that's
some
the best idea I've heard in a while.
You know, and Jamie Osborne becomes Leinster's 12 again. Not.
So we're talking about this season, I suppose, more.
Yeah,
so. I can't see that happening in season.
No, sorry, of course not this season.
Sorry.
But whenever his contract's up, I wouldn't be surprised. Cause
you're talking about the longer. Yeah,
there were certain moments. I think back to the France game in the Six Nations when Robbie Henshaw didn't go around. Was it Miafu maybe in the corner?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I got it for.
And you were kind of thinking like Robbie Henshaw a couple of years ago just skins him on the outside. So I think it's a big season for Robbie Henshaw as well. He would have been gutted to have missed out on the Lions selection. Obviously, he didn't go on the Ireland tour. He had picked up that injury. So this is a big opportunity if they are going to use Jamie Osborne.
He either reinforces what we know about Robbie Henshaw in terms of his quality, and the key thing for that, I think, is it's just injuries. I think, you know, yes, he might lose the maybe a yard of pace, but he's such an experienced guy. He's a class player. So
not to use cliche, but class is.
Yeah, he is a class.
He still has plenty of.
But Osborne should be coming into I think
he's in his prime now
this year. I think.
These are his years.
Yeah, Henshaw's 32. Like, so 8 years between.
And he doesn't want to get caught in the Frawley mold. Where
and I think
you're like a jack of all. Like I think 12. If I was him,
I don't think he's a fullback long term. But it's just like there's a needs must element that is Hugo Keenan's out. Like the prospect of starting in Chicago at fullback, like that's there for somebody.
But Farrell does have other options. Like, you know, I think he's got Hansen there. Hansen's a nice option. He's a nice kicking game, and
he hasn't played international rugby at fullback.
Yeah, but he's still not a live option for you.
Talked about a lot of
You've got Lowe, you've got Stockdale, you've got Nash, you've got other guys.
None of these guys are fullbacks.
No, I'm talking about the back three just generally. Yeah. But if you're talking about specifically for that fullback slot, he has got those guys, and he can also put Frawley on the bench if he needs to go back there, or he can put Crowley. He has options if he wants to. If he doesn't want to, and Jimmy O'Brien as well.
I think it's Jimmy O'Brien and Jamie Osborne for the.
You reckon you don't think he'll switch the other guys? No,
can't see it. No, I don't think so. And I also think Mac Hansen fits that role. I'm fascinated not to go down the Ireland bandwagon, but that 14 position, because I think Tommy O'Brien has been brilliant, but Mac Hansen had a really good lines tour as well, and he's obviously the man in possession of that 14 jersey, but Tommy O'Brien was brilliant on winning his first 2 caps.
Tommy O'Brien is the form guy.
He's class player.
Tommy O'Brien was Leinster's best player last season after Jordy Barrett, who didn't play in the semi-final.
Yeah.
Anything else Leinster related?
Sorry, no, I thought we were moving. No, I think
Champions Cup is the big.
Champions Cup.
Big
they
one,
need to make the shift.
And I thought just go back to Nienaber's comments in the press this week. He was sort of saying that he came in mid-season, got the system going. Year 2 was all about kind of fine tuning it. Season 3 is about when it properly comes to fruition.
That's what he said. What did he say the first time? How many games did he say?
To rewire the players' brains. Was it 10 games?
12 games?
Or was it 14 games?
Something like that.
They brought him up to a perfect point in the season.
The idea that he would need 3 seasons with Leinster to win a Champions Cup. I'm sorry.
No, but
did he say that? I didn't miss that.
It's more the system. And Ty Furlong was in this studio? He was last week, and gave a good insight about the players, how much they're going to say that anyway. But I think the players genuinely do like playing in this defensive system. And I agree with you, Luke. It did win a URC title. I know it wasn't a Champions Cup, but the URC is more difficult to win. It obviously imploded on the biggest day of all, but I think it'll be better again this season. You're not convinced, I can tell.
No, I know. I'm convinced it might be better, but it's the idea that they would need 3 seasons to win a Champions Cup with the team that.
Sorry, I just don't like the idea of.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying his
3
point
years,
was
2.5 years to bet in a system.
That's what his point was.
I don't agree with that part of it, but I think he's certainly, I'm talking to some of the guys that they do love him. He's very well regarded in there. I think they had a blow up in Northampton. As I said, if they cut out the selection crap, where you're going, what? You just don't have a question about the selection.
Yeah.
Of course, injuries. You might not get your best team out, but you still want there to be. You want to see clear logic with the team, and sometimes that's been missing at times. And then I think the defensive side, I thought that question was answered, asked and answered at the start of the season. And it came to the key point. It came completely unstuck. So, can they keep delivering that intensity, on the days when it really counts at the end of the season? Because they will be there and they'll be in those positions. Can they deliver now?
I read out the Jacques Nienaber, just in case people think I'm misquoting him with me. So, year 1, that's what I want. Year 2, let's try and embed the skill set and understanding of the system. Hopefully, in year 3, we'll see the evolution now. So that's the.
It shouldn't take that long. It can't be that complex.
I just wanted to
get up off the line and smash
I think it was fair to quote him directly so that I'm not misinterpreting.
No, that's fine. No, we believe you. So we're left with Ulster then.
Yeah, left with Ulster. Okay.
Yeah.
So 14th last season, which was obviously their worst ever finish in the league campaign. Not in the Champions Cup this campaign. They conceded 72 tries in the league, which is shocking. They lost to Zebre at home. They finished with 5.
They were in good positions a lot.
They finished with 5 straight defeats as well. Yeah. Mark Sexton comes in as attack coach. Willie Falloon is the permanent defence coach now. They probably have the 2 most eye-catching signings, I'd say. Angus Bell coming after the November test. He's been really good in the Rugby Championship. Great ball carrier. And Warno Augustus, people remember from Northampton, Leinster, and both seasons actually in Croke Park 2 years ago and in the Aviva last year in the semi-final. A really good ball carrier at number 8. So probably the 2 most eye-catching signings. But they still seem to be drifting a bit. The 2 lads there will have to do a lot of heavy lifting, I think, to get them up the table. I think of all the provinces there by a way, the ones I'm least enthused about how they might do this year.
Yeah, I suppose when I said at the start that there's excitement in each province, I think certainly the excitement is around those 2 guys, and I agree with you, Will. They are 2 brilliant signings. Angus Bell is obviously going to arrive a bit like Rico Ioane after the November internationals, only until the end of the season. It's been interesting to watch how Joe Schmidt has been using him off the bench.
Should we start?
Go back to kind of your point about kind of overthinking it. He's only 24, I think. He is one of the world's best loosehead props. For Ulster to have pulled off signing him is amazing. I think of all the signings that Irish teams have made, that he is the one player that you desperately need. I know Rico Ioane pound for pound is brilliant, but Leinster have plenty of options there, and I think Augustus as well, what he's going to give you at number 8. So I agree with you. I think they look very light at halfback now that John Cooney is gone. Aidan Morgan, the out half, has left pretty underwhelming spell with Ulster, you'd have to say. So there's going to be a lot of responsibility on Nathan Doak's shoulders at scrum half. Now, he was one of only 4 players, if you want to include Scott Wilson, who spent only a week with Ireland, who didn't get capped or didn't play a minute on the Ireland tour, which I think he'll have taken as pretty big insult, actually, because it was a tour where lots of new guys were getting capped and he didn't get capped. So you're looking at Nathan Doak playing scrum half, and probably Jack Murphy, who Richie Murphy's son, is being promoted from the academy. 21 years old, like, it's a big ask, I think, to ask a guy that inexperienced to steer a ship that was pretty rocky at times last season. Like you said, Will, conceding that many tries. The Zebra conceded the same number, and the Dragons were the only ones who conceded 92 more tries than them. So they brought in Willie Falloon as defence coach instead of Johnny Bell. Now, Falloon came in towards the end of last season as well, but he didn't...
Really, was on my school's team.
Was he? But he didn't have time, obviously, to embed his system. So what you have now is the 2022-23 Ireland under-20s coaching team with Richie Murphy, Mark Sexton, Willie Falloon and Jimmy Duffy. So those guys know each other, but you kind of wonder if maybe they need like a Stuart Lancaster type figure, what kind of an older, kind of wiser head who's been around.
They don't come on trees.
No,
maybe
it's a bad example, but you know what I mean?
No, you know exactly. Yeah, star power or something.
So I think Richie will be under pressure by dint of, like, you look around the other provinces, like
my first
you have
thing.
Neen Aber, Clayton McMillan from the Chiefs, one of the most like probably sought after coaches, and then Lancaster and Connacht. I think Ulster supporters, if the results are bad early on, and their fixture list is tough. They have Dragons home, okay, it's a good start. Then Edinburgh away, Bulls home, and then off to South Africa for the Sharks and the Lions.
I have that another way. I think that's a good place to start. And I have my first thing is still under pressure. Is the first, we're
starting under pressure.
Just still under pressure. I think financially and all that kind of stuff. I have the key thing for me with Ulster is yes, the defence, but I think they've got to keep their big players on the pitch. That has been a major issue. Similar to Munster, a major issue at Ulster for such a long period of time. They have got to sort that out. They have an issue with getting their big guys on the pitch because they have quality. You can see they've got quality, but they can't get them all on the pitch at the same time regularly enough. And that is the biggest issue for me with them. I have here again Augustus, like what impact can he make? He's impressive. That's an area that they've had a big problem for a very long period of time. It's just having that bit of ballast in the back row. Since kind of Nick Williams and probably Speed, you couldn't really get could see on the pitch.
But when he was,
on, he was magic. Yeah, but that was another one where just bad luck, couldn't get the guy on the pitch as well. So same kind of thing. So can they keep him on the pitch? Can he have an impact? I like Timoney. I like some of the players alongside him. They have quality. You can see Henderson is an experienced guy now, doesn't have that kind of power. But you've got Izuchuku there. You've got good players there. Bell coming in now. I think there's enough there for them. I think that the 9-10, particularly the 10 scenario, is going to be, that's a big pressurised thing. But I think I think maybe Cooney going could be a real. It could be a bit of a release for Doak. I think there's a little bit of a pressure off him now. He gets to run the ship, and he has the potential to do that. He's got a lovely kicking game. You can see he's a lovely rugby player because he can play a little bit of 10. Anyone who can do 9 and 10, they're a good rugby player, no matter what you say about them. So the skills are there. Can he take on a leadership role? Can he steer the pack in the right areas, provided he can get some kind of platform? Probably another challenge for them. But I think guys like Augustus, and if they can keep the guys fit, all those things should help him, I think. So I like Falloon coming in, hard as nails. He'll give them that kind of hard edge. I think his old man used to break horses. I think that was seriously, I'm not joking. So he is hard as nails, Willie Falloon. And I wonder, can he kind of make a big impact on that defensive side of the ball?
Just that fixture list,
I think that's not a bad one.
That could be 1 from 5 potentially. Like if
I could see them winning those first 3 games.
Yeah, no, they could win the first 3. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They could win the first 3, but they could also, like, Edinburgh away, Bulls home is not like some of the other fixture lists. I feel like Connacht start off with a nice soft fixture list, I think, to get the ball rolling under Lancaster.
They've had most of their players available to them all summer. So the new coaches they've had a long period to work with them. I haven't heard any rumblings about big guys out for long periods. So I don't know. I think because I think my thinking about it is when I was just kind of going through yesterday, I was thinking about them and I was thinking they have an opportunity to start the season quite well.
And I think they need to. I think to back to your original point, they're starting the season under pressure because they were so poor last year. I think Augustus is obviously one to watch, but also his sort of Springbok credentials. He hasn't been capped yet by the Springboks, but he's been in South African squads. Now, Ulster will be hoping that remains the case because that he's available.
As he will be capping him soon, I'm sure.
And to be honest, he's just unlucky to be around at a time when there's freakishly good. Like, he is outstanding. He probably will win a few caps by the time he's done.
When Leinster brought in Slimani, or France brought back in Slimani after years, like, actually we might bring him in.
And it's also worth pointing out, Will, that there's been plenty of change in the backroom team. Like I said, with Willie Falloon coming in, obviously Richie Murphy is starting his second full season, but behind the scenes as well. So on the foot of losing Johnny Petrie last year as CEO, Bryn Cunningham is about to head out the exit door as general manager.
No?
Well, he's staying on until I think they find his replacement. But that job, you know the way I said there that they could do with kind of an experienced head around him. I think that appointment as Ulster's general manager, obviously Ulster will be doing it in conjunction with the IRFU, I think is a massive role to fill. So we've spoken about Connacht going out to the market, getting a Stuart Lancaster. Now, it's not necessarily a coach that they're looking for, but that's the way the IRFU have sort of modelled their approach. Now, Ian Costello in Munster, who everyone will remember was the interim head coach last year, is gone into a newly created position, general manager. So you mentioned Billy Millard, obviously Guy Easterby does it in Leinster. So what the RFU want is to have the provinces more streamlined. So we can talk about what goes on the pitch, but you mentioned Luke, about kind of, trying to earn a bit more revenue. Times are tough. I think that general manager role is such a big position to fill.
Yeah. You want
and
the coach.
It should give them consistency. You should have that kind of that guy who's able to take that long term, medium term, long term view nearly all the time,
and be a bit detached from the coach and can look after all the stuff that we said.
You'd imagine Hunts will be fairly involved in that process.
Absolutely,
Sure,
it's going to be an IRFU as far as I'm aware.
Do they have a pair of points?
They would have to be involved in, is my understanding. So I think that's a pretty big position to fill and to get right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I think we did a good around the houses there. I'm extremely excited for this Friday double bill, Leinster at the Stormers and Ulster Dragons, and then another double bill Saturday, Scarlets Munster and Connacht Benetton. Lots to look forward to over the coming season. Glad to have you both back, and we'll be chatting plenty.
I missed your mugs.
What season number is it? Did you say
this is season number 9? On the podcast.
Yeah, correct. That's what I said. We spent. I'm pretty sure it was right on 8. It was like 8 years of the profits.
Done well to keep the ship.
Obviously a joke.
Well, I was saying to Cian, Leinster won the Champions Cup in season 1, and if you told me then that it would be season 9, and we'd be talking, can they finally win the Champions Cup? I would have thought that was highly unlikely, to say the least. But here we are. Thanks so much for listening. Great to have you back as well as listeners. We'll be back again next week, and until then, goodbye.